Hey, I'm John Doherty, and today we're going to cover P3, and that's when the left arm is parallel to the ground in the backswing. The first two videos, P1 address and P2, was the first time the club shaft is parallel to the ground in the backswing. So you got to have those right, P1, P2, to have a good P3, but I'm going to give you some pointers today and some areas you can focus on that are going to make it a lot easier to be successful. And the first thing is to realize that the backswing really needs to be a hands-controlled pivot with monitoring the inclination of the pivot to the ground. So there is some thoughts with the pivot, but mainly we're getting our clubs, our hands, arm, and club up to a position we can make a dynamic transition and not have to make too many or any compensations in the downswing. So first area I want you to focus on is the right wrist, and the right wrist is only going to bend back. So I want you to not cock that right wrist up in the backswing at all, only the right wrist, dorsiflexing to the right, no radial deviation at all in the right wrist. Second thing is the forearm. I want the forearm to fan around the elbow joint, and I want the elbow to flex going back. So the main focus in the backswing with the hands and arms is all in the right arm and right hand. The left arm and left hand is going to be very inert, like a piece of rope in the backswing. The focus on the body is, once we get into a good P1 position, is to maintain that inclination in the ground, to the ground with the torso. And if we make a good backswing with the hands and arms, it's going to make the rotation part come natural. All we really got to do is make sure that we keep inclined to the ground when that happens. So let me jump right in and show you what I'm talking about. Once we get a good P1 position, I like to see a waggle with the right wrist bending back and the right forearm slightly moving around the elbow, just to kind of encourage the motion that I want to see in the P3 position. I'm going to kind of film it at about a 30-degree angle to the camera. All right, so now I'm at P3. The things I'm looking at P3 is that, did I stand up in the backswing, or am I still inclined to the ground? That's the body part. Second thing, now is moving to the arms. I like to see the elbows level to the ground. I like to see the pressure points in the right arm. I like to see the armpit pressure point still intact, the mid bicep part still intact, but my right elbow about 3 inches off the torso. I also like to see that my humerus bone is inside the inseam of my shirt and did not move back behind the inseam. The elbow flexion in the right arm should be about 100 to 110 degrees. So 90 is where we're going to be at P4. We don't want it straight. A lot of takeaways, you see the right arm too straight going into P3, and that tends to get the body to move too much off the ball and stand up too much. So good P1 position. Let's hit it again. Right wrist bent back. Pressure points are maintained in my armpit, my bicep area, 3 inches off my elbow. A cool thing about the left wrist cock is that when the right elbow flexes, it automatically cocks my left wrist. So elbow flexion cocks and uncocks the left wrist automatically. But what we got to watch out for is that the right wrist will bend back, but the left wrist will cock. So it's kind of a weird thing to happen. It's just the way the hands are in the club. But the left wrist will hinge when the right elbow flexes, but the right wrist needs to stay bent back. With the rotation on the hips and shoulders, it pretty much comes free of charge. So when I take a backswing, if you look at my shoulder rotation, all with the body I try to do is stay tipped over to the ground. My shoulders have turned 75 degrees. My hips have turned about 35 degrees. I did allow my right knee to slightly straighten from its address position as my hips rotated, but not too much. I don't want to see that right leg lock out. So I want you to feel some flex in that right knee into P3. The left knee did increase flexion and move in towards the golf ball at P3. So just to cover some areas again with the body, if my arms work correctly, my right wrist bends back, my right forearm starts to fan around the elbow joint, and I maintain my pressure points, you're going to get this beautiful rotation for free. Now, if we look at the face-on view, there's some areas we can talk about with P3, but we'll start at address. Again, I want the left arm straight, right arm bent. All right, so P3, I like to see from this view that the left ear is about 1 to 2 inches to the right of the golf ball, and that's the furthest it's going to be from the golf ball. We're going to need to make a dynamic shift in transition, and we don't want to be too far in front of the golf ball. That's why we want that ball position slightly up, with in front of my left ear at address where my head is completely behind the golf ball. All right, so we just covered some key areas in P3. Again, the focus needs to be on the arms and the body staying down. You'll get that rotation, no problem, and we'll be set to go into P4 on the next video. Thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing you again.